How do you handle seller credits on the loan estimate? Hi there, this is Jerod Moyer with Bankers Compliance Consulting. Today I want to share with you one of the TRID 2.0 changes that affects how you disclose seller credits on the loan estimate. Now, really we're going to go through one scenario where I'm going to show you different options where the borrower and the seller have agreed to have 100% of the charge paid for by the seller, or maybe it's just a portion of the charge paid for by the seller. Really what this comes down to is the term good faith within the TRID rule, which is what did you know and when did you know it? The best information available to you at the time the disclosure goes out. Now, with the scenario that I'm going to go through, assume that the bank has in their possession the purchase agreement indicating how much of a specific fee that the seller is going to pay for. In this case, it's going to be a survey as we walk through these different options tied to the scenario. Now, first we're going to take a look at two options where the seller is paying 100% of the required survey. Now, the survey is a third-party service that's required by the lender, and for today's purposes, we're not going to allow shopping with any of the options I provide you. So in this first option, we're going to show the survey 100% of that charge as being responsible by the borrower to be paid for in Section B. You'll see that $200 charge. Now again, we have the purchase agreement in our possession, and we know that the seller is going to pay for 100% of that charge. We offset that $200 charge in Section B by a $200 seller credit in the cash to close section. The net result to the borrower is a zero charge. Again, based on good faith, having that purchase agreement in hand before the disclosure goes out. Now that's how we've probably been doing it. Let me show you what TRID 2.0 now allows us to do. In this case, we still require the survey. However, since we know, based on good faith, that purchase agreement in our hand before the loan estimate goes out, that the seller is going to pay 100% of that charge, we're actually allowed now to not disclose it all on the loan estimate, the survey in Section B. We also don't have to show a seller credit, even though we know they're paying for 100% of that charge within the cash to close section. So I know what you're thinking. Where am I going to collect from the seller that $200 charge? Well, remember what the loan estimate is about. The loan estimate is all about the borrower. And so since the seller is paying for this, and we're not going to disclose any responsibility as it relates to the borrower, you'll actually collect from the seller on page 2 of the closing disclosure. And that's another discussion for another day, but trust me, it all works out, and the bank's not going to end up paying for this survey charge. Now, both of the options I've shared with you already are when the seller is paying 100% of the required charge. Let's now take a look at the seller paying a portion of the charge. So same details. There's a $200 survey. We're not going to allow shopping. The borrower is ultimately responsible for it. But this purchase agreement now says specifically that the seller is going to pay 50% of that survey charge. So in this case, the way you've probably been doing it is you go to Section B, you show that $200 survey in Section B, and then you would show that the seller is going to pick up half that charge with a seller credit in the cash to close section. In this case, it's a half of the $200 charge. So the net result after you do the $100 seller credit in the cash to close section and the $200 survey in Section B is $100 to the borrower, which is what we want it to be, very transparent doing it this way. Well, TRID 2.0 now allows us to simply go to Section B and take that $200 survey and only disclose the borrower's portion, $100 in this instance. Now, the cash to close section, what about the seller credit? You actually don't disclose the seller credit because the net result to the borrower is $100 based on the way we've shown it to you in this example. If you were to put a $100 seller credit there, you're actually going to net the borrower zero as if they weren't paying for any of it, and that's not what we want. Again, I know your question is, well, then where do we collect from the seller? You'll actually collect from the seller again on page 2 of the closing disclosure. Again, different topic for a different day, but trust me, it all works out. Now, this is just one of the many changes that TRID 2.0 brings to the table. We hope you and your team will look to us for some of your TRID 2.0 training solutions. Whether it's a live event where you can come and shake our hands and meet us in person, or maybe you're not able to travel, but you still are looking for that TRID training solution, we have webinars, both live and on demand. On demand are things we've already completed but are still relevant. The live ones have yet to be performed, and they'll be throughout the upcoming year. And you can find out more information about this if you go to our website, bankerscompliance.com. Remember, we're here turning regulations into plain English so that you can get back to doing what you do best. That's serving your customers. Thank you and good luck.